What's up guys, it's Aaronitmar, and today we are talking about more taunts, this time for fighters that debuted in the one and only Super Smash Bros. Melee for the Nintendo GameCube, and so you know that these are official esports certified taunts. But first, I got a bone to pick with some of you because apparently like 70% of you who watch my videos aren't even subscribed to my channel and you might not even realize it. Now it's an in-year goal of mine to hit 200,000 subscribers. I'm less than 20,000 away now, so if you aren't subscribed, please hit that button. I'm not even asking you to ring any bells, just hit that subscribe button. Now, with all of the selling out done, let's talk about Melee and its taunt origins. In Melee, Peach spins around, poses with her finger near her face, and says, "Sweet!" This is likely based on her victory animation from Super Mario RPG when you win a battle with Peach. She'll spin around, strike a peace sign, and wink at the player. While Smash has her hold up a finger rather than the peace sign, the rest is pretty spot on for this taunt. It stays with Peach all the way until Ultimate, now being moved to her down taunt. Also in Ultimate, a heart appears next to her face, which is just meant to fit her character more, as she has hearts a lot of other places in her moveset. The rest of Peach's taunts from Brawl and onward could very well all be Smash original, but loosely based off of other Peach material. For her up taunt, she pulls out her parasol and twirls it while saying, "Sweet." Peach is often depicted with her parasol, even being a part of her moveset. But specifically in Super Princess Peach, one of her idle animations has her spin parry the parasol in a very similar way. While Smash has not used parry at all for Peach in her moveset, it was at one point considered based on unused textures that are in the game, and so it's very likely that this animation was inspired by Super Princess Peach. And lastly is her side taunt, which has her dance back and forth with music notes around her, singing, This is most likely original to Smash and is intended to be the truest form of a taunt, as it has become infamous as one of the most disliked taunts in all of Super Smash Bros. Bowser really seems to have gotten the shaft with regards to his taunts, as they really aren't taken from any kind of real source material. Bowser's depiction in Smash is very much meant to emphasize the reptile or dinosaur part of him, much more than the cartoony side that's seen in the actual Mario series. Starting in Melee, Bowser throws his head back and roars, like you'd expect from a dinosaur or reptile type thing. He keeps this as his up taunt all through the series, though starting in Brawl, he also breathes out smoke, as though his fire breath just can't wait to burst out. His side taunt has him bite at the air 5 times, reduced down to 3 times in Ultimate. Again, not really anything that Bowser has specifically done, but it's just more of a reptile behavior. And lastly, he, for some reason, jumps on one foot and acts as though he's gonna fall over. For this one, I just don't have any idea. I don't know what this is referencing, if it's referencing anything at all, and at most, it's just very close to his teeter animation. But I really don't have any idea why this is in the game. The Ice Climber's taunt in Melee seems to be entirely Smash original. They both hold out their hammers as though they've successfully conquered a mountain, and a howl of wind plays behind them. Most likely, this just stems from how an actual mountaineer may behave, since the Ice Climbers may be the character in Smash with the least amount of source material to pull from. Their up taunt has them place their hammers down and jump in the air, which is a reference to their animation on the victory screen of Ice Climber, though of course missing the flag, and there's 2 of them instead of just 1. Their down taunt has them jump around in a circle, which could be a reference to their home game where the entire point is to jump up non-stop. But more likely, it's just a cute taunt designed to match the cute design of the Ice Climbers. Sheik unfortunately seems to be a little underwhelming with all of her taunts. In Melee, she pulls back and raises her hand to her face while exhaling. This taunt stays all the way until Ultimate as her down taunt, and it's pretty much exactly the same the entire history of Smash. In Brawl and onward, her up taunt has her pop up onto one hand for a handstand, and for her side taunt, she pulls out her chain and stretches it out. In Smash 4, Sheik's side B was changed to Burst Grenade rather than her previous chain, but the taunt ironically stays basically the same, with the only difference being a twang sound effect at the end. None of these taunts are particular references to anything. Smash's design of Sheik is really meant to emphasize her ninja attributes, and these taunts just fall in line with that kind of mindset, representing her agility and her precision as a ninja. Zelda's Melee taunt has her bring her hands together as if she were praying. Zelda has often done this pose throughout her different incarnations, and young Zelda from Ocarina of Time specifically does this during the game, so it could easily be a reference to that. However, this taunt changes in Brawl and it stays in this new form all the way until Ultimate. Zelda still brings her hands together, but instead of praying, she takes it into her own hands and she summons a ball of fire. This is based on her side B, Din's Fire, which is one of the goddess's spells in Ocarina of Time. This taunt was also one of Zelda's victory poses in Melee, which was then repurposed to be this taunt in Brawl and beyond. Her up taunt in Brawl and Smash 4 has her reach for the sky with a little bit of a sparkle at the end of her fingertips. This doesn't really have much of a reference at all, other than the fact that Zelda is a magic user in Smash and in the wider Zelda franchise. In Ultimate, this is changed, although the general idea is pretty much the same. She has magic emitting from her hand, but rather than reaching to the sky, she sort of just waves it out in front of her and poses at the camera. And lastly is her down taunt, which has her waving in the direction that she is facing. I couldn't really find anything that linked this specifically to the Zelda series around Brawl's release, since that's where this taunt came from. I couldn't really find anything that was linked to the Zelda series specifically, so there definitely could be something that I just totally missed, or it could just be a Smash original. Dr. Mario is pretty well known for his taunts, but not really in a good way. He starts off strong with his original Melee taunt, where he tosses a pill up into the air and catches it. This could very likely be a reference to Dr. Mario, where Dr. Mario himself tosses you the pills that you line up in the game. Though instead of tossing it to the player, he simply tosses it back to himself in Smash. In his big return in Smash 4, he gets two new taunts that may as well be idle animations just for how lackluster they are. First, his up taunt has him grind his shoe on the ground. Now this could be a reference to his animation in Dr. Mario where he taps his foot on the ground, but this sprite really doesn't seem to be grinding his foot in any way. And for his down taunt, he bumps his fist against his shoulder. Now this is something that I really couldn't find any kind of connection for. It really just seems like a basic animation that they gave him. Pichu debuted in Melee, and he is one of the rare cases where he actually has two taunts in a game where everyone else has one taunt. And it's all dependent on which direction he's facing. If he's facing to the left, he jumps up and down and says Pichu while looking towards the camera. If he's facing to the right, he rolls around on the ground while also saying Pichu. Both of these seem to take inspiration from Pikachu's behavior, because both Pichu and Pikachu's taunts have the same energy to them. And it makes sense because Pichu is the pre-evolution of Pikachu. Pichu's right taunt may also be where Brawl Pikachu inherited its rolling around taunt from. In Ultimate, both of these left and right taunts are now split off into individual taunts, no longer based on which direction you're facing, but instead which taunt button you're pressing. And of course in Ultimate he gets a new third taunt which sees him charging up with electricity just like Pikachu, but then he falls backwards with spirals in his eyes. This is based on the fact that Pichu can often damage itself from its own electricity, as evidenced by the fact that all of its electric moves in Smash cause it to take on a bit of percent. Its eyes turning into spirals is a reference to the Pokemon anime, which often portrays a Pokemon fainting with the exact same style of eyes. Falco's taunts in general don't really have specific references to any game or scenario, but they have more to do with Falco's general design in Smash and in Star Fox as a whole. Falco is the coolest member of Team Star Fox, and his taunts are meant to reflect that. In Melee, he spins around and scoffs at the opponent. In the Japanese version, he does the same spin, but says one of two phrases. This taunt returns in Brawl and stays with Falco all the way until Ultimate, but the voice line is no longer exclusive to the Japanese version, as he now says this voice line in different languages in the international versions. Falco's up taunt has him play hacky sack with his reflector before catching it while saying piece of cake. While this taunt can be a callback to Falco kicking his reflector as part of his down special, both debuted in the exact same game, and they're likely just another way to differentiate Falco as the cool, flashy fighter. And lastly is his side taunt, where he holds out his arm and says a voice line. Unlike his other taunts, this taunt actually has a different voice line in each game. In Brawl, he says, "Don't try me." In Smash 4, he says, "Get some." And in Ultimate, he says, "Come on." In Melee, Marth swings his sword, raises it up, and says, "Minna, which roughly translates to "everyone watch over me," or "everyone please look at me." This doesn't specifically have any kind of a reference, though the end of the taunt does kind of look like the end of the critical hit animation from the original Famicom Fire Emblem. And the phrase that Marth says doesn't really have any reference, though it could potentially be based on Marth being the leader of his army. This taunt stays in pretty much all Smash games except in Ultimate, where the animation is cut short due to the game's overall faster-paced taunts. He also speaks English in the international release of Ultimate, saying,
"Keep your eyes open!"
though he says the exact same phrase in the Japanese version. His up taunt in Brawl Onwards has him pointing his sword to the sky with a sparkle on the tip. This is also based on his critical hit pose, but it more accurately matches the critical hit animation from Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon, a DS remake of the Famicom game. In Brawl and Smash 4, this taunt doesn't have a voice line with it, but in Ultimate, it does. He now says,
"This is it!"
And lastly, his side taunt from Brawl through Ultimate has him swing his sword briefly before placing it in his sheath. The actual animation of this taunt doesn't necessarily have a reference, but Marth has had official art done where his pose matches the very end of the taunt, so this could just be a 3D reimagining of this art. Young Link, being a growing boy, pulls out a bottle of Lon Lon milk and drinks the whole thing before wiping his face. While not necessarily a reference to a particular moment in the Zelda series, Lon Lon milk is a staple item in the Zelda series and first appeared in Ocarina of Time, Young Link's first game. Young Link drinks this down in one, but it's actually supposed to have 2 helpings, meaning that in Smash he should really be gaining 10 hearts back if we're following the real rules. This taunt is also the longest in all of Melee. Having a huge gap between games, Young Link returns in Ultimate and keeps this taunt, but it's now substantially shorter, with Young Link chugging it all at once rather than 3 big gulps. For his up taunt in Ultimate, Young Link raises the Kokiri sword into the air, which seems to be a Smash original. Because of Link's Breath of the Wild upgrade in Smash, Young Link has instead inherited his former side taunt. Navi flies around while Young Link admires her, and she then returns to his hat. However, unique to Young Link is the positioning of his hand on the fairy, which is a clever nod to this artwork done for Majora's Mask. While the fairy in Smash isn't the same fairy as the one in this art, the pose is definitely intentional. Ganondorf's first taunt is a sort of fusion of different aspects of his character from Ocarina of Time, with a bit of a Smash twist thrown in as well. He spins around sort of tucked into a ball, and then he stretches his limbs out quickly while laughing. In Ocarina of Time, the final fight with Ganondorf involves him hovering around, which is where the anti-gravity aspect of this taunt comes from. Whenever your window to attack him is over, he raises up and does a similar pose to the melee taunt. Smash just seems to have added the spin to just give him a little bit more flair. This is yet another taunt that has survived from the beginning, becoming his up taunt in future games. Ganondorf's side taunt has him punch his fist with a pulse of dark energy. This seems to be a Smash original, and it's probably a reference to the Warlock punch and how he has all of that power inside of his one fist. And lastly is his down taunt, in which he pulls out his sword and admires it before putting it away. While not strictly a reference to anything, the actual sword matches the design of Ganondorf. For Brawl and Smash 4, Ganondorf is the Twilight Princess design, and so the sword he pulls out matches that game, using the Sword of Six Sages that was used to attempt to execute him. In Ultimate, he returns to his Ocarina of Time design, and while he's never specifically wielded a sword in that game, a tech demo at Space World 2000 shows Ganondorf in a sword battle using this exact sword. This also isn't the first time that this Space World sword was used in Smash, as it was also used for one of Ganondorf's victory poses back in Melee. Next up, we have Mewtwo's taunt, which has him spin around and laugh, with later versions having him slightly rise up in the air. I can't really find an exact reference to this. Mewtwo has plenty of animations where he rises up, but none of them really match the Smash taunt exactly. I'm more than willing to accept that there's an animation of his that does match this, I just wasn't able to find anything right now. His side taunt in both Smash 4 and Ultimate has him charge up with dark energy, which is a reference to his portrayal in the Pokemon anime, and specifically Pokemon the first movie. Lastly, Mewtwo strikes a pose at the screen and dark energy pops out of his hand. There is countless art of Mewtwo hitting basically this exact pose, so this taunt is really just a 3D representation of what this would be like. And then of course they add a little bit of dark psychic energy just for some extra fun. The pool noodle boy Roy himself leans back for his taunt, screaming "Eeeeah!" with his hand outstretched. While the prepubescent shouting is unique to Smash, the actual pose that Roy hits is a 3D imagining of one of his sprites during the battle phase of Fire Emblem The Binding Blade. Though he didn't get sent an invite in Brawl, Roy returned in both Smash 4 and Ultimate, and in that time he grew up, bringing with him a much deeper voice. For his up taunt, Roy holds his sword up above his head, which is potentially a reference to a moment in his game where he receives the Binding Blade. And his side taunt is basically the same as his up taunt, but more around his waist than above his head. While this pose is pretty generic and is likely original to Smash, he shouts, "I won't lose," while performing the taunt, which is one of the victory quotes that he used in Super Smash Bros. Melee. And lastly, we have Mr. Game & Watch. For his taunt in Melee, he simply rings a bell. The physical Game & Watch units had a basic alarm system built into its clock, and this is the sound that the alarm would make. In Brawl, he gets 2 additional taunts, one of which is exactly the same as Melee's, except instead of holding it to the side, he holds the bell above his head. This has the exact same reference, and it's literally just a different pose, but it is fun to spam them back and forth. His down taunt has him do a small jump, which is possibly a reference to any number of Game & Watch games where one of the action frames has him jumping. But this jump was short-lived, as in Smash 4 and Ultimate, it was changed to have him sit on the ground and puff out some air. This is taken directly from one of the frames done in the Game & Watch version of Mario Bros. And that does it for all of the taunts from the Melee newcomers. I would love to know what your favorite taunt was from this video, because of course there are just so many good ones to choose from. And of course you are free to ridicule me, because I know you will anyway, so if I missed something or I got something wrong, please feel free to say it down in the comments, because I'm only human, I can't get everything right. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button. If you're new, please be sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys next time for Brawl Taunt Origins. Catch you guys later. Peace out. Have an awesome day.